Thank you, and thank you all for being here. Our topic today doesn't need much introduction. We all know that the region has struggled with a labor shortage for years, and it's been exacerbated by the pandemic. We know there's also no silver bullet or easy solution to come up with solutions to that issue, but you all have engaged in partnerships across the nonprofit and for-profit sector to develop talent for our region. So I want to get into the mechanics of that, how you measure your success, and all of those things, but let's start off with some introductions. Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what your role is?
Well, thanks for having me and for having GPS Ed here. My name is Jeremy Joecks. I'm the Director of Partner Services for GPS Education Partners. We're a 20-year-old nonprofit organization who's been trying to tackle this workforce challenge for a couple decades now here in Wisconsin and beyond now at this point. I oversee our Wisconsin operations, which are our education centers, and Jim from Bradley here is one of our education centers. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, good morning. I'm Mark Farrell. I'm the Executive Director of Talent Delivery at Froedtert Health. So in that fancy title, I lead our talent acquisition team, which is responsible for hiring over 4,000 individuals per year for Froedtert hospitals, as well as our workforce development and workforce planning and solutions teams.
Good morning. My name's Jim Johnston. I work for Bradley Corporation. Our headquarters is in Menominee Falls. We have a few locations here in the Wisconsin area, one in Germantown and our manufacturing site in Menominee Falls. I'm new to the Wisconsin area. I've been with Bradley for 2 years. We're celebrating our 100th year anniversary this year. It's fifth generation family owned, which is very unusual in today's environment, so very excited to be here and talk about this very important subject. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us here and thanks for taking on this important topic. My name is Amy Leahy and I am the Director of the Corporate Work Study Program at Cristo Jesuit High School. We're located at 18th and National in a new facility there. We are in our 7th year of operations, but we have a 25-year history nationally. We're part of a broader network of schools across the country. We are a college prep, private Jesuit Catholic high school, and we've, unique to our model is a corporate work study program. So our students, all of them, go to work 1 day a week throughout the entire school year. So not only are they in their college prep and high school classes, they also go to work at 80 different partners across Milwaukee. So just a big undertaking, but also a really big missional commitment to see our students developing for college and that transition to career as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the four of you represent two different programs that are working on these workforce issues. So I would like to start with Amy and Mark. Tell us about how your program works. How do you engage high school students on workforce development?
Sure. So in students who decide to make the commitment to come to Cristo Jesuit High School, the work program is required. So it's not an opt-in or opt-out, an elective they take. So, they come to our school, the families choose our school because they want to participate in that work development and in that professional development in an earlier phase in their life. So they're starting in on their professional development and their own skill set development early. And we work with all the partners to get them placed, to see them develop at work, to support the partners. They really learn what it means to go to work at a very early age.
And so with Froedtert Health, what we've done is we've worked with Cristo Rey to identify opportunities for those students to come in and get experience in a variety of different positions throughout the healthcare environment to let them know that there's different opportunities. So we have opportunities that are in clinical settings and in non-clinical settings where individuals come in and work, I think it's about 6 hours a day, and perform different tasks. We have a particular group that comes into our human resources department every week, which is fantastic because you get to know the students and you get to talk with them a little bit about what they want to do and where they want to go, and you see them grow throughout the year. Usually they come in really shy and quiet, and then through as the year goes along, they're talking with you and engaging. So it's great and fantastic to see them. And then we do have the opportunities where they're right in the hospital and they're transporting patients to procedures or helping with their discharge, or we're just going to start a new opportunity in our pharmacy area. So a real good opportunity to give the students a flavor of what it's like to work in healthcare.
And a quick plug that in your giving guides, which are at each of your places, the main story in the giving guide actually features Amy and the Cristo Corporate Work Study Program. So be sure to check that out. Jim and Jeremy, let's hear about how your organizations partner together on workforce development.
So we partner with about 100 manufacturers, primarily across southeast and northeast Wisconsin. The Bradley team is one of our education centers, which is essentially a hub in a given region where all of our students from a number of school districts, we have about 40 school district partners across the state, come to learn their core academic subjects. So they spend about half the day in class at one of the education centers. So Bradley hosts an education center up in Menomonee Falls. And then the other half their day they spend working as a youth apprentice. So these are high school juniors and seniors who are either were disconnected with traditional learning in a traditional high school environment, or were just interested in a technical career and they wanted to move on with their lives and with their careers. And this model of providing them with a space and a place where they can learn and then earn, part day learn, part day earn, is really what has changed the lives of about 1,000 students. So Bradley hosts one of our education centers. In addition, they take several of our youth apprentices too. So just a great opportunity for young people to kind of try a career on for size and see if it fits. So been a great opportunity.
So I guess over the last 20 years, it's been very difficult to get people interested in the trades and being in the manufacturing space. You know, everybody's fighting for the same group of individuals, so we're doing everything we can to try to entice them that manufacturing and that environment is cool to work in. The last year has been even more difficult, something we haven't seen before. So now everybody's fighting just for people. So you don't necessarily just want people. So we at Bradley are blessed to have this education center right in our location. So, and that's been there for a while. I can't take credit for putting that in there, but I am now definitely taking advantage of the situation that we have. So the way it works for Bradley, and you have to have a passion for wanting to help people. I do have that passion to want to help people. It's fun to just see the people with their eyes wide open and just talk to them. I think the most important thing, and I think the piece that people miss, is just get to know them first. Don't talk about your company. Don't bring them in there and just overwhelm them with details. With 50% of it, they're not listening anyways. Once you get through that piece of it, then you speak to them about the values that you have as a company. And I think that's very important, is not to just hire them, but you want to keep them. But you want to make sure they understand what environment they're coming into. So it's a reverse interview. The third piece of it is you need to explain what is it that you do. We are in the commercial washroom space, so we got to find a way. What's cool about that, right? We're talking about restrooms, but it is cool, right? We want them to understand, how do we do business? What company are you joining? How are you going to be treated? How sustainable is that company? We want them to understand how we do the business. And then the last thing we talk about how do we make it? What are the positions out in the factory? Walk them around. And by that time, they should have spoken to not only the leaders, but other leaders inside the factory that have walked in that path for several years. We've been around 100 years. That's not by accident. There's been a lot of good work done by that. It's very unusual, but how do we keep that tradition going? So our people want good people, and we want them talking to our good people, and with that advantage that we have within Bradley, we're able to compete with these larger big brand companies that surround us here in this Milwaukee area.
Jeremy, you mentioned that GPS Ed has been doing this for about 20 years now, trying to encourage students onto technical pathways for their career. I'm wondering how you've seen perceptions of those careers change or evolve over those 20 years. What would you like to see happen yet and on the perception front?
Yeah, great question. So even before GPS Ed came onto the scene 20 years ago, the state of Wisconsin actually was pretty forward-thinking. We actually are home to the oldest youth apprenticeship program in the country. So it started in 1991. So youth apprenticeship is actually celebrating 30 years this year. And it's actually the oldest adult apprenticeship, or it's called registered apprenticeship system in the country, started in 1911, so 110 years old. So there's a rich history in this state of work-based learning, or of getting people out of a school environment and providing them with a work opportunity so that they can see what the world of work is like. So what we've seen over the 20 years we've been doing this work is, early on, I think that was probably the peak of, especially when youth apprenticeship was first getting going in the 90s, the peak of kind of pushing students towards more of a four-year college path, four-year university path. What we've seen over time in the last 20 years, and really accelerated in the last 5, is I think schools and the education system is realizing that there are lots of pathways to success for young people. So shop classes or tech ed classes are starting to pick back up. The pendulum is swinging back. So we've been able to take advantage of that. Just in terms of there's more openness for young people. Parents are more open for young people to go into technical careers, to work with their hands. The pay is great, the opportunities are great. So that's been one thing that we've seen, at least in this state. Outside of the state of Wisconsin, it's been really interesting. We've been taking this model to other states. Many states in the surrounding Midwest region haven't even started to think about how do we get young people into the world of work. So that's been exciting as we've been able to kind of be an expert in other states where, we go into these states that really don't even have an idea that you can have a young person work in a manufacturing environment or a trades environment. So that's been exciting. In terms of what we'd like to see more, we have a crazy, wild, aspirational vision that every high school student should have a work-based learning experience of some sort before they graduate high school. It's probably crazy and wild, but that's why you shoot for big goals. So if we could do that, I think the world would be a better place, and more young people would be able to try a career on for size before they graduate high school.
Mark, I want to talk a little bit about the healthcare industry because we know it's not immune to labor challenges. There are shortages now and projected shortages with a retiring workforce. Can you just give us a sense of what you're up against on the hiring front at Froedtert?
Yeah, it's all roses right now. Nothing going on in healthcare. Even before what we've experienced over the last 18 months, we knew that there was going to be a healthcare shortages, right? We have growing needs for healthcare, of course, and limited numbers of individuals going into the careers. And some of the people that are here are retiring now. So we've got a lot of individuals who are making transitions in their careers. So how do we get people interested in understanding what we do in healthcare is really important for us. So we've been focusing on some of our workforce development opportunities to introduce, individuals to careers in the high school time frame, partnering with our local community colleges, partnering with our colleges to introduce healthcare careers and to help make sure that the experience, people get that work experience that's out there and understand what the career can be in healthcare. And we can't just focus on nurses. The technical roles that we have are so important, and we have such a need for people to do those 2-year degree type programs like surgical technologist, as well as the 4-year degrees that we need for nurses and human resources people, all of those different areas that we have. And it's really a challenge because now we're also competing with other industries where we never thought that was going to happen. Because of the pandemic, we've had a large number of individuals who have said, maybe I don't want to be in healthcare right now. Maybe I want to try something different. And people are going into different industries, which is something we didn't anticipate before the pandemic. So it's created a new dynamic. We've got to make sure that we've got a work environment that helps people, not burn out. We've got to make sure that we're looking at where other opportunities are for people and anticipating that people may leave to go and do something different, which has really changed the dynamic. But it's been fun. It's been a fun 18 months.
I'm interested in how each of you measure, GPS Ed and Cristo, how you measure the effectiveness of your programs. How do you know that your workforce development works, as the title says? And Amy, just maybe we'll start with you. There was also a question from the audience about if you could talk a little bit about graduation rates at Cristo and kind of pathways post-high school for students.
Sure. So do you want me to start with the metrics?
Yes.
Okay, great.
All of it.
So there's a couple of things we look at every year in terms of the success and health of our program. We look at our partner retention rate. Taking high school students in the workplace is no small feat, it's a commitment. And how many of those partners or those businesses come back to us year after year is a good indicator for us. So we generally see, even during the pandemic, we had roughly 85% of our partners come back again to take students into the workplace. And taking students into the workplace right now is not easy. Return to work plans, COVID restrictions, different policies and protocols. So we're glad to see our students back in the workplace. Also, new partner acquisition. Every year we add new partners. We have a target each year. So we're growing and sustaining and maintaining our partners. Also, our employment rate, how many of our students have jobs. We have 430 students. We like to see all of them out to work in a variety of different businesses. And also student performance ratings. Our students go through a performance review. It's short and sweet, but they do it every day they go to work. So imagine you get rated every day that you're at work. Our students do that. And we track performance ratings. So, we watch how they're doing, and most of our students are performing at the top end of that performance rating scale, which is exciting feedback for us. And college admissions, I think there was a question on college admissions also. We track that. All of our high school students who graduate are accepted into at least two or four-year institutions for higher ed. And then now we're starting to track that we're in our 7th year, our alumni. So we're watching, our students graduate. We're watching them then go to work at our partners who maybe employ them during their high school years. And so we're seeing them land college-level internships, working part-time during the school year while they're on campus. And now we'll be looking forward to tracking, as soon as we get about another year or so under our belt, which students are landing full-time jobs after college at partners where they worked during high school and then college.
And Jeremy?
Yeah, so similar to Cristo Way, we certainly have a lot of partner metrics as well in terms of a retention rate. We had about a 90% retention rate from last year to this year. So during the pandemic, that was super exciting. Partner acquisition is another one of ours. In terms of student outcomes, obviously graduation rate is an important one. It's just the starting point for us. But working primarily with an at-risk population of students, we know that many of the students who came to us, not all, but many came not on track to graduate high school. So I think that's an important thing to talk about when we talk about our outcomes. But we've been able to, over our history, graduate 94% of students. Again, many who've not been on track to graduate. They were struggling in the traditional environment for one reason or another. Hire rate is a big one of ours. So when a company like Bradley invests in our program, one of the reasons they do it is they want to have a future workforce come out of the program, right? They want to be able to hire as many as possible. So 60% is about what we average on a given year in terms of students who hire on at that company and take a full-time employment opportunity. We also layer in a lot of credentials. There's a manufacturing credential called MSSC that we have our students do. 82% of the students successfully complete that. We do a lot of career readiness as well. We track all of our alumni over 20 years. Obviously, we've had many students who've gone through the program. So we see how many are still employed, how many are doing post-secondary education. So absolutely outcomes matter. We track them, we share them with all of our constituents, with our donors. Matters to donors, how well their money's being spent as well. So really proud of the program over the years and what the students have been doing. Alumni is just a really cool element of our program since we've been doing this for 20 years. Just a super quick story, if I could. Our very first class of students in the year 2002, class of 2002, we had a graduate from that year who actually stayed in manufacturing. He brought this program to his company. Anybody heard of Komatsu in here? I'm sure pretty much everybody had. A little company just down the road. So Komatsu is a huge company, union shop. He actually brought this program to Komatsu. We didn't partner with them, and now him and his team are mentoring current generation students. So pretty cool story of giving back to the next generation of students.
You're all focused on high school students, but often there's discussion that maybe these workforce exposure programs need to start even earlier, maybe in middle school, and I know the state's made a push toward that with the career plans that every sixth grader is required to have. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, and if you think this needs to move up earlier in the pipeline to middle school, or if that's just simply too early for someone to be thinking about those things.
I actually think it's too early. I think the freshman year probably is the right place to start. And if you're going to start, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you better make it fun. And if it's not going to be fun, they're not going to be interested. And there are programs out there, and the ones I'm most familiar with start in 9th grade. It's more of a competition, where you develop some type of a battle bot. This is what they had in Pittsburgh. And you develop it with companies, with mentors, and you compete. So you build a business plan to build your model. You go against other high schools, other competitors. At the same time, you learn how to build a product from the bottom to the top. And then you also compete, which is always important to the business industry. So I think if you're going to start a little bit younger, number one, get to the parents, number two, make it fun.
Yeah, from a healthcare perspective, we go into the the middle schools, and we do talk about careers, and we have the professionals who do the work go and talk about the programs. But of course, there's barriers to bringing people into the environment and what they can see, so you can't make it real hands-on. But our professionals do a great job of talking about the careers to the middle school students, and they talk about, I won't talk about some of the stuff they talk about while you're eating breakfast, but it gets the kids a little engaged, right? And they're like, oh, that's interesting. And it's about planting a seed, right? You've got to plant a seed, and you've got to talk about all the different healthcare careers, because a lot of people, they always focus on nurses and doctors. And there's so much more that's out there in healthcare. So it lets us plant a seed, and that's what's important. But the real hands-on stuff, you got to be careful. We can't do at middle school, right?
Yeah, so I think at the middle school age bracket, it's the what, the why, and the how, in terms of it being a meaningful experience. My 15 years prior to coming to Cristo were all in corporate HR, and coming into high school, it's the teenage brain is a thing, right? Like, I think you have to be very targeted at what you do at the middle school age, because they may just not be ready for that full-blown, meaningful experience.
And just one final add too, I agree with everyone else here. Middle school, I think it's a good starting point. We've actually developed what we call work-based learning journey, where students, even as young as late middle school potentially, but for sure early high school, can just be made aware. So we call it career awareness. That's the very first step. Then there's career exploration, then there's career experience, then there's career preparation, and then there's career development. So there's 5 stages, and it does start potentially as early as late middle school, but it needs to be customized to that population of students just based on their age and their development in their life at that point.
This was on my list, and it's asked by someone in the audience. So obviously, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a major priority for the region. I'm interested in what tangible steps your organizations are taking to ensure that that's a component and central to the work that you do.
Sure, I can take that. At Cristo Rey, out of our 430 students, about 96% of them are either Latinx or African American. So exactly at the heart of what we do is, sort of that diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective. So, many of our students are first generation college bound, and that pathway to college may not be as clear and full of a few more barriers. So everything we do is actually about advancing the opportunities for that population. So it's exactly at the heart of what we do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and what we're doing at Froedtert is looking at not only what we're doing from a workforce development perspective and what community organizations we're partnering with, but we're also looking at the employee life cycle and how do we engage with our diverse employees all throughout the cycle. So when they come in, how they're onboarding, how they're growing in their career, and even when they're exiting, how do we stay connected with people who are making a decision to leave the organization, so either they return or they become our ambassadors, join our alumni network if they're retiring, so they can help us talk to the future generations. So it's really looking at not just one point in when a person joins the organization, but the entire life cycle. The entire journey. So.
And I think I'd add too, from our perspective, one of the things that early on we learned is that within the state of Wisconsin, the youth apprenticeship system, at least in its early years, there were actually things that excluded young people from being youth apprentices, and we challenged that system in this state, and we said that populations of students who maybe don't have a 3.0 GPA or maybe were struggling in high school, they should have an opportunity to work as a youth apprentice. So we were able to kind of push the envelope in terms of that. In terms of other elements of diversity, obviously our students come from a variety of different school districts. So our MPS students, Milwaukee Public Schools, look and feel very different than students from Hartford Union High School or Menominee Falls High School, whatever that might be. Getting girls into the manufacturing industry has been a challenge, but we try super hard. And when we do, they rise to the top, and oftentimes they're the stars in the classroom. So we've really tried hard to talk to our school partners and get more young girls into this industry, because there's nothing that happens in a manufacturing environment that a female can't do. It's just the perceptions and challenges over the years that the history has kind of told them that maybe that's not an area for them. So it's something that we continue to work on. Our marketing materials always reflect females as well as other elements of diversity. So it's an ongoing process, but working hard on it.
There have been several questions from the audience as well for the employers on stage about with employees being increasingly mobile and changing up their careers, as you have mentioned, what needs to happen for employers to retain and get a long-term commitment from employees? Can you even expect that now? What needs to happen?
Well, first of all, I think you have to show them that there's a future, right? Not only just for the company, how stable is the company long term, but where can they travel in the company? Not everybody wants to. There are some that just want to be in a position, know that it's a stable position, but also grow financially, and how the company is performing with that. But I also think if from a development standpoint, there are positions that open up because things evolve, there's turnover in a company. How do they find that path? So we need to be explaining that constantly. It's not just when it comes up and then, okay, what do you have over here? So the flexibility in the workforce, moving them around as you have the ebb and flows of your business model, I think it's important that you keep that first and forefront.
And I ditto. But the other thing that I would say is we have to keep our doors open. We have to realize that people will leave, right? And it's okay to go, but how do we make sure that they know that they're welcome back? And go out, learn something new, and you want to come back to us and bring what you've learned back to us. That's really important to make sure that we understand that the door is all open. And to fight to say that everybody's going to stay in their jobs for 30 years, it's just not realistic. So you can grow them in your organization, let them grow deep, let them grow across different things, but also if they leave, how do we get you back? We want to make sure you understand you're always welcome home at Froedtert. That's a tagline. I'm going to take that.
Well, that's actually the time we have. We kept it short and sweet, leaving people wanting more. I know some of you will be available after the program to field questions if there are additional ones, and we'll continue the discussion with our second panel. So thank you all.